What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're going to be talking about buys in Dynasty Fantasy Football. NFL free agency is in the books for the most part. A lot of the big names have already found new places, which means that the Dynasty landscape has changed pretty significantly for us, so there is some value to be had. With that being said, I don't want to waste too much more time, so make sure you guys are subscribed if you do enjoy today's content. But with that out of the way, let's hop right into today's video and start talking about these buys. All right, so the first player I want to talk about today as a buy is going to be Chase Brown, running back from the Cincinnati Bengals. You look at Chase Brown right now, currently being valued as the running back 15 over on Keep Trade Cut. He's 26 years old and coming off of a 2025 season where he played in 17 games, had 232 rushing attempts for 1,000 rushing yards, 69 receptions on top of that with 437 receiving yards and 11 total touchdowns. All of that was good for 16.6 fantasy points per game, which was the 7th best at the running back position. Now, Brown is coming off of a 2025 season where he also had a top 6 opportunity share at 71.9%, and he saw the 4th most targets at the running back position, which in return helped him produce his best fantasy football season to date. He averaged 100 total yards per game from week 6 on and should very easily be considered an RB1 for fantasy football, especially with zero competition being added so far by Cincinnati in free agency. There have also been some rumors floating around this offseason of a potential extension looming for Brown, which would lock him into the starting role for Cincinnati long-term in a fast-paced offense as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy. So if you're looking to trade for a guy like Chase Brown, I think he's a player I'd be more than comfortable shipping or trying to shop one of those mid to late first-round rookie picks. I think of trying to move those right now in today's market, and we're going to talk about that a lot in today's video, but those types of draft picks, 106, 107, 108, maybe even the 109, depending on your league market and how much rookie fever affects your league specifically, I do think you should be shopping them for Chase Brown. Let's move on to my second guy. It's going to be DJ Moore for the Buffalo Bills. Right now, KTC's wide receiver 32 at 28.9 years old. You look at 2025 for him, a down year, 85 targets, 50 receptions, 682 receiving yards. Those are the lowest in a few years for DJ Moore, and he only averaged about 10 fantasy points per game. Now, obviously, that was with the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore was traded over to the Buffalo Bills in early March to hopefully break that streak for Buffalo, who's failed to produce a top 36 wide receiver for the second year in a row. Now, the good news for Moore is that he did play under Joe Brady in Carolina in 2020 and 2021, so he should hit the ground running given that he has some familiarity with Joe Brady's scheme. Now, I did expect a little bit of a bigger market shift for DJ Moore than we've seen so far, but with the lack of target competition in Buffalo, I do think that means that we should see Moore bounce back to that 120 plus target range, which will make him a high upside wide receiver 2 for fantasy football purposes alone, just based off of the volume. So just like Chase Brown, I'm shopping first round picks. I think anything in that 109 to 112 range, a late first round pick, that's probably what I'm trying to do to get it done, especially if I am contending right now, trying to get some points on the roster, and I don't want to wait on some of those rookies that you might be looking at there in that late first round range. Let's talk about a running back. I think Rico Dowdle is a buy for the Pittsburgh Steelers, currently being valued as the running back 30 on Keep Trade Cut. He's 27.8 years old, so a little bit older as a running back, but coming off of a 2025 season where he had 236 rushing attempts, 1,000 rushing yards, 39 receptions, and 7 total touchdowns, averaging another season of 12 plus fantasy points per game. Rico Dowdle joins the Steelers, reuniting him with Mike McCarthy from their days over there in Dallas, and I do think it locks him in as the favorite to lead this backfield in carries in 2026. Kenny Gainwell, a big piece for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is out of town now in 2026, which also is going to vacate roughly 200 plus opportunities, which makes it pretty easy to see the pathway to relevancy for Rico again here in 2026. Now, he is coming off of back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and like I said, an average of 12 plus fantasy points per game in each of those years as well, and Dowdle was one of the more efficient running backs in football last year, posting top 15 numbers in yards per route run, EPA, and yards created per touch, despite seeing some pretty heavy boxes in Carolina, and he does remain one of the most affordable RB2s for contending teams in the Dynasty trade market today. If I'm looking to trade for him purely off of rookie picks, early seconds are the first thing that I'm shopping. Anything in that 201 to the 204 range, I think is more than capable of getting a deal done for Rico Dowdle, especially to the right buyer. I'm not afraid to get into that 111, 112 type of range if I truly feel like I'm a running back away. Maybe it feels a little expensive expensive, but Rico Dowdle, like I said, one of the more affordable RB2s, and he should have a pathway to a lot of touches here again in 2026. Let's talk about Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. Right now, KTC's wide receiver 49. He's only 24 years old, getting into his 4th season here in the NFL. In 2025, he had 58 receptions on 87 targets for 566 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging about 8.5 fantasy points per game. And we're buying Downs because Michael Pittman was traded to the Steelers after Alec Pierce signed his extension to remain in Indianapolis. And while Pierce and Warren seem to be the most likely to benefit from his departure, he's vacating 110 plus targets that should also find their way to Josh Downs as well, who seems to kind of be the forgotten man here in this receiving core. Keep in mind, Downs was one of the most popular breakout candidates before the 2025 season after posting 13 plus fantasy points per game in his sophomore campaign, but it seems like the room just got a little bit too crowded for him there in year 3. I also think about how early on this year we could see Daniel Jones rely less on his deep ball and more on the short game while he recovers from that Achilles tear that he suffered last year in 2025, which would mean more looks for guys like Downs and Warren. I don't think Downs is a glamorous buy, but he does seem like somebody who I'm more than comfortable taking a flyer on as he enters this prove-it year in the final year of his rookie contract, as I mentioned. You talk about draft pick compensation, early to mid-second round picks, somewhere in that 203 to 207 range, I think are just the right price to potentially send off for Josh Downs. So if you can get something done in that range, I'm more than comfortable taking a flyer on Downs in year 4 because it does look like he should be trending up here in 2026. Now let's move on to my last and final buy. It's going to be TJ Hockenson at the tight end position. He's currently KTC's tight end 19, 28.7 years old, coming off of a 2025 season where he had 51 receptions on 66 targets for 438 receiving yards, only 3 touchdowns for Hockenson. That was 7.5 fantasy points per game. Now it's no secret that the days of top 5 upside for Hockenson are long behind us, but he is a player that I still think can produce as a top 12 option, and the market is just too low on him at the moment. You will notice that a lot of the highlights on the screen, they are old, they're from the Kirk Cousins days, the Sam Darnold days, but that's because Hockenson has had a really rough couple of years of injury woes stemming from that torn ACL, MCL that he suffered in 2023 that leaked into the 2024 production, followed up by a year of inconsistent quarterback play with virtually a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy in 2025. However, Kyler Murray is in town now, which should indicate an uptick for all of the receiving options in Minnesota for fantasy football purposes. And when you peek under the hood, you'll still find that Hockenson is being used by Kevin O'Connell in a way where I think he can still produce some spike weeks for us in fantasy football, because he was posting top 15 numbers in 2025 in snap share, routes run, design targets, and red zone targets for the Minnesota Vikings. Again, I want to emphasize that he's not going to produce top 5 upside, but he is an undervalued tight end 1 with the addition of Kyler Murray, especially at his current cost of tight end 19 on keep trade cut, and he should benefit from an improved offense in Minnesota in 2026 and will be further removed from that knee injury. If I'm trying to trade for TJ Hockenson, I think that same Josh Downs range, anywhere in that early to mid second round where I'm trying to move a 203 to a 207 depending on my league, that's kind of the compensation I'm looking like for Hockenson. But if I can get him as my tight end 2 on my team, or maybe if I'm a budget tight end type of team and I'm just looking for some cheap options, Hockenson still has enough upside here in 2026 that I think he can produce multiple tight end 1 weeks for us if things go right for him with Kyler Murray under center. All right, so there you have it. That is 5 players I am buying after free agency going into the 2026 NFL season. As always, if you found something today informative, entertaining, and or actionable, do me the favor and hit that like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed because next week we're going to be talking about some sells post free agency as well. So you want to make sure that you are going to get that video in your inbox. So make sure you're subscribed, like I said. Last but not least, go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description. We're helping you guys with those Dynasty fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. So with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today. I will see you on our next episode, but until then, peace out.